try to avoid doing that because sometimes you end up reading stuff that it didn't even enter your mind, and then all of a sudden you're really extra worried because of something that you didn't even know was there in the first place.
Absolutely. This is the vicious cycle that we get in with our anxiety, is that when we experience it, we don't want it. And if we try and get rid of it, we have more of it. It's classic. Every single time, that's the way it goes. So if you can imagine that, as we just said, I mean, we might, for instance, have some sort of social anxiety. We may just feel a bit sort of uneasy in social situations. So in order to cope with that, we might to get rid of that feeling, if you like, we then may, drink some alcohol when we're out and just keep drinking alcohol until we feel that Dutch courage bubbling up. And then, of course,
you do something you regret, and then you feel really anxious the next day because you've done something stupid.
That's it. So it just feeds our anxiety. We may also use foods, comfort eat, to feel better or to feel less anxious. Then, of course, we just become anxious about putting weight on, for instance. So it's always a vicious cycle. Whatever we do to try and get rid of our anxiety, it brings on more of it. And that's the most important thing to recognise. And also the way out of it.
Okay, and actually we are going to be speaking to our viewers about how you can actually deal with the anxiety, how to get rid of it in a lot of cases, hopefully. I know you can get rid of it because I did. Although I do get anxious sometimes, but I know how to cope with it sometimes nowadays. But after the break, we're going to be delving more into this. We've got actually a slideshow that you're going to be talking us through as well, and helping our viewers recognise some of the symptoms and also what you can do in each situation as well. But if you are going through this and you would like to, ask a question by email, you can email us on chris@chrissybshow.tv. You can also, if you want, you can also go on the Facebook page, the Chrissy B Show, and put your comments there. And Amelia's going to be joining us after the break as well to read your emails. So as I said, it's not something that is uncommon. Lots and lots of people go through it. You're not the only one. Although I do think some people really have it bad, because I was actually reading an email from a gentleman. I was on the NHS website, if I can just find it here. And this gentleman, actually, he's 46 years old, and he said he's realised that he suffers from anxiety, and I think it's quite obvious from what he's saying. He said he's been biting his nails since he was 5 years old, and then he says he gets really, really anxious when his boss is a bit demanding and basically says, "I need this done in an hour." And this is what happens to him. He says, "I often get shaky and I have to go to the toilet as I feel nauseous, and I vomit and I start crying. I start to feel inadequate with my work, and I start having doubts as to my capabilities. I have been carrying a barrier around me as a defense mechanism against these decisions which I feel I cannot control. And for me, I feel it's been a fight to gain recognition of normality." And then he says a bit more, but then he ends there I want my life back. So obviously he feels like he's not actually living his life. So if this sounds familiar and you are going through this as well, please do stay tuned, because Dr. Michael's going to be really helping our viewers tonight, and hopefully you get some help from the show as well. So join us after this. Welcome back to the Chrissy B Show, where we're speaking all about anxiety. So we were describing anxiety before the break. And now we're going to find out how to actually deal with it as well, because obviously it's something, if you're watching, you don't really want to have to live with it every single day. Although we do go through it, don't we, Doctor?
We do go through it, yes.
From time to time.
It's the important thing. Remember, it's a natural part of our experience. It's not something we can get rid of or stop, but how we manage it is the important thing to think about. Okay, so just before you tell us more, let's just go to Amelia for a couple of comments as well.
Yes, Chris, we've got one here from Sarah. She comments, "I'm a victim of panic attacks. I had just started a new job and I felt a drum of panic. My whole body went funny and I could not think straight. I just felt a strong urge to get out of the room. I had no idea what was wrong with me. I ended up making an excuse to leave my workplace that day and go home. I then spent the rest of the day pondering about what had just happened."
Okay, do you have another one as well?
Yes, we've got one from Jane. She comments, "My introduction to panic and anxiety happened at a very young age, till my teens. I'm now fully recovered and now I'm a lot stronger. I no longer worry about anything. If there's one thing that anxiety teaches you more than anything else, is to not let worry or distractions. My life is so much different now, and I try to live it to the fullest. I wasted so many years, and now I feel it's time to catch up."
Okay, so the first one was actually going back to what you were saying, Doctor, as well, because she was saying because she had the panic attack or that episode, then she went home and she was worried that she'd had it, so that brought on more anxiety, is what you were saying before.
It's
it could have just been an isolated case, couldn't it?
Well, it could be indeed in its own, but the more we start to become anxious about being anxious, the more it lives itself out. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And can you see we're questioning it? What is that? What was that?
Where did it come from?
Is there something wrong with me?
Yeah.
And it's this style of questioning, the why, the evaluating, the judging ourselves. Is there something wrong with me that undermines our confidence, then leads to more anxiety?
Okay. All right, and also the second view as well. Do you really not worry about anything? Nothing at all? There must be something little that you might worry about sometimes. As I think, okay, maybe she's saying that. I don't believe no one can worry about anything, because I think it's a natural human thing, but maybe you don't let it sort of consume you and take over your life, which is great, by the way. It's really good.
Absolutely. But it's a very important point, isn't it? It's that, anxiety is what we do when our life is going on around us, basically. We're not present, experiencing a rich and meaningful life when we're caught up in the thoughts in our mind all the time.
Yeah.
So this view has made it very clear that now she's able to, live a meaningful and satisfying existence by letting go of her anxiety. So there's a cost to anxiety, and it's really important to recognise that as a motivation to change.
That's really good. So, help us then.
All in a few minutes.
I know we haven't got, because there's quite a lot to go into, but we haven't got time to do everything, have we? But at least something you're gonna tell our viewers about.
Indeed. So we can manage our anxiety through any one of our 4 experiences. So whether that be our thinking, emotional, behavioural, or physical selves. What I'd like to do with you is just think about our thinking self for a minute here today. So if we can just bring up an image that I brought with me, the first image here. And here it is. Here's Pete, the tightrope walker, a friend of mine. And Pete's really experienced at tightrope walking, yeah? But every time he steps out on the tightrope there, he has the thoughts, I'm going to fall. Now, that's quite an understandable thought, but our instinctive response to Pete would be something like, well, come on, Pete, you're not going to fall. You've done this for years. You're really experienced. So it's a bit of positive thinking. But he'll just reply back by saying, I might fall, how do you know? So all this positive thinking that we've done in psychology for some time now just doesn't really cut it. It doesn't bring on the sort of relief and long-term benefit that we want. So instead of all the positive thinking, we can just say to Pete, look, when you think I'm going to fall, how do you feel? Well, I feel anxious, he'll tell us, And what happens to you behaviourally? Well, I just want to stay away from that tightrope and climb back down and forget the whole thing. So, okay, well, the thought I'm going to fall may be true, but it doesn't sound like a helpful thought to have at all if you want to make it across the tightrope. We don't have to have the thoughts in our mind. We don't have to pay attention to them, is what I'm trying to say. If you had the thought, Chrissy, that, just for instance, I'm a green alien from outer space, you'd laugh it off instantly, can you see? But if you were Pete and you had the thought, I'm going to fall, you go, oh, I need to listen to that, it's an important thought. So we pay attention to thoughts that represent some sort of danger for us, but you don't have to. Pete can treat any thought he has just like you might treat the thought, I'm a green alien from outer space, laugh it off. So how do we do that? Yeah, that's what I want to show you. So we can bring up the next image here.
And just to specify as well, the tightrope is like, for example, maybe something that we do feel nervous about or anxious about, because it's like we are sort of stepping out into maybe the unknown, or is that...
Absolutely. I mean, the tightrope could be an analogy for life, really, couldn't it? Making it across life or carrying on with what's important to you. For Pete, it's making it across the tightrope, but for us, it might be, a rich and fulfilling relationship rather than worrying about a partner leaving us all the time or something like that. We need to just pay less attention to thoughts, yeah?